I have it on good authority that you're not getting paid what you're worth. I'm going to tell you in a second what that good authority is, but I'm going to tell you that you deserve to get paid more for your time, your story, your experience, your expertise, and the change that you're going to bring to the world. And the secret to you getting paid more is actually sitting up on the whiteboard behind me. It's a matter of mindset combined with skill set combined with action set. And while most people that talk about money talk about one of those three today, and also tomorrow, potentially on Wednesday, here on EdTalks, we're gonna roll up our sleeves and talk about how you can get compensated well for the great work that you're doing in the world. EdTalks Live is next. All right, hey there, welcome to the show. I said in the beginning that I have it on good authority that you're not getting paid what you're worth for your time, your experience, your knowledge, your expertise, or your authority. And I'm gonna tell you how I know that with 100% definitive proof. You see, I've worked one-on-one with over 440 entrepreneurs and business owners. These are people who had three goals in mind. They wanted to increase their income, they wanted to increase their impact in the world, and they wanted to have a better lifestyle. You see, when I work with entrepreneurs, I always ask them what your big goals are. And I started to see after a while some patterns of people who were putting their goals into those three categories: income, impact, and lifestyle. Now, of those 440 people that I met with and worked with eye to eye, knee to knee, one-on-one, exactly 0 of them, or 0% of them, were charging what they were worth, or in fact, getting what they were worth when they first came to me. So I have it on good authority that you're not getting paid what you're worth. You're not necessarily charging what you're worth. And this series that will take us for today and tomorrow, and probably into the third day, is designed to show you how to get the kind of revenue inside of your business that you want and you deserve. Now, this is How to Get Paid What You're Worth, Part 1. My name is Ed Rush, former F-18 fighter pilot and 7-figure advisor. I'm going to be using some of the strategies inside of my business to unveil these. Tomorrow, we're going to go into Part 2 of how to get paid what you're worth. And then on Wednesday, I plan to go into pricing strategies, ways to price yourself, especially in today's day and age, that will help you increase your sales, increase your value, increase your bottom line, help more people, and have a whole lot more fun. All right, but before I do that, let me just say hello to some of our friends in chat. If you haven't logged in over here to the right, if you're on YouTube, there's a chat feature that's over on the right. All you have to do is start typing into that box. I'd love to know who you are, where you're from, and what you do. If you've already done that, I'm going to be acknowledging you in just a second. By the way, if you're on Facebook or Twitter, that information is right below in the comment section. So I want to say hello. So I have to just say, I've been pronouncing this name wrong for about the last 8 years. So this is Barry Gumar from Palm Springs. He says, to the professor of positive creative cerebral sage. He said, I've been pronouncing it Gumir, by the way. So Barry Gumar. And all the things I learned as a cerebral sage. Wendell Bugs from Houston, what's going on? Dennis Bauer, welcome to the show. John Teague, my man, good afternoon in the UK. Good morning. Aubrey, how are you? Denise, welcome back to the show. Jim Butts, good to see you. Delisa Toole. Cherie, hello. From Yorktown, Virginia, where the world turned upside down. I want you to think about this for a second. We are a country that has actually gone to war twice over individual freedoms. Just let that sink in for just a second. We are a country who has gone to war twice because of individual liberties. The first time, right around 1776, we had an issue with a king that wanted to tax us without us having an opportunity to speak for ourselves. And so we went to the Revolutionary War, which, by the way, was won at a little town called Yorktown, Virginia, where the world turned upside down. If you've ever seen Hamilton, the second time, you'll remember, was in 1860. In 1860, we went to war over the individual freedoms of a certain racial group in the South. Twice in our country, we went to war over individual freedoms. And I'm here to tell you that you can kind of feel it almost. I certainly hope we don't get to the shooting part of the war, but You can feel the tensions rising in our country even as we speak. Good morning, Diana. Good to see you. She says, living in the present, rejoicing in the garden. Hello, Sally. Hello, Terry from Yorktown as well. I hope that you've at least been able to get out and kayak in this time. Hello, Robert. Good to see you. Aaron Miller, as usual. Gina, welcome to the show. Hello, Juana. Good to see you as well. Matt from Oregon, welcome to the show. Anna, hello. Welcome. Barry, prognosticator of... If I could pronounce that, it would be a good tagline. Hey, Rick Brown. Good to see you, as well as Richard McLean. Welcome to the show. If you just joined us, today we are beginning a series called How to Get Paid What You're Worth. Tomorrow, part 2, how to get paid what you're worth. Today we're going to be talking about the triad, mindset, skill set, action set. I'm going to anchor in on this first one. I can tell you that most people that teach money making teach one of 3 of these components. Either they talk about the mindset, your millionaire mindset you've probably heard described before. Other people teach persuasion, strategies, influence, sales skills. Other people talk about taking action. In this series, we're going to push them all together because the truth is you can have the perfect money mindset, but if you're not taking action to create the kind of wealth in your business that you need, nothing's going to happen. But you could be taking action, have the bad mindset, all right, and all of a sudden things aren't falling to the ground, or you could have the right mindset, the right skill set, and not be out there asking for the sale. And so we're going to cover all 3 of those as we go. And by the way, we did have what's up, David Zetz? Good to see you, man. Welcome to the show. We did just have a whole bunch of new folks join us. So if you did, my name is Ed Rush. This is How to Get Paid What You're Worth. We air daily right here on YouTube every day at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. That's every weekday. I do happen to take the weekends off today. This weekend, I was working in the yard, Diana, working in the yard, actually working around our beautiful garden. Okay, so life is good here in Southern California. Interesting world we live in, though. Interesting world. All right, so let's get into a discussion. I'm going to start right here in this segment. Again, we're going to be doing this over the next 3 days, but I really want to start with this way of thinking, and I want to take you back to a time in my life when my mindset around money was a little bit different than it is right now. In fact, I was sitting in this chair right over here. At some point, maybe I'll turn my camera around and show you this chair that I keep pointing at, okay? But we are going to start on this. We're going to start on mindset. And by the way, if you did just join us, my name is Ed Rush, former F-18 fighter pilot. This is a series called How to Get Paid What You're Worth. So one day I was sitting in that chair right there, my little recliner chair where I do my thinking and my processing. Now, this was about 12 years ago. Same house, same office, different Ed Rush by minus 10 years, but pretty much the same in terms of energy, motivation, and a dedication to excellence. And I'm sitting there and I had just started my first business. My first business, I had a business where I helped people become fighter pilots. It was my very first company that I started in the world. It was an internet-based company. I had a series of products that I was selling to young men and women who wanted to be fighter pilots. My little course was $95. My membership club was around $30. And I had over 300 people on that membership club at one point. And I was getting, in certain cases, 50 to 100 sales every single month. At one point, this business was producing about $150,000 a year. My first business, this new thing that I had started, trying to create and market this product on how to be a fighter pilot. Now, for the purposes of this discussion and in full disclosure, it's important for you to know that at this time, in fact, not at any time, I wasn't doing anything in my business that was untoward, ethically, morally. There was nothing, there was no, there wasn't anything that, would be cause for concern. Let me just put it that way. And that will be important as we get into that story, because I'm sitting in that chair. My house looks over this valley here in Bonita, California, and I'm sitting in this chair. And in the valley, I hear a police car. Woo, 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 woo. Whoosh, that police car is flying through the valley. And my first unconscious, subconscious thought went like this. Man, I hope they're not coming for me. Wait, what? That was my first reaction. Like, wait, what? Where did that thought come from? And I realized that I had attached this subconscious guilt to my business. You see, I felt guilty that I was making money. I don't know where that one came from. I mean, I had been in the Marine Corps for years getting a check every 2 weeks from the Marines, and I didn't feel guilty about that. But when I got into business, there was some nature of the acquiring of wealth that made me start to feel guilty. So I went back to the drawing board. I went back to the book, as it were. And I'm going to get up on the whiteboard here and share my first of two very big revelations that I realized when I started thinking about money. Okay, so the first thing that I realized was that I had a misconception about the kind of people that were in the world. You see, I had been trained at that point by media. And if you watch the news and if you watch movies, you'll know that there are two kinds of people in the world. There are evil, rich people, and there are good, poor people. So, for example, this weekend, my kids and I and my wife watched the movie Goonies. I don't know if you remember that movie. It was in Astoria, Oregon, right? The poor kids fighting for their home while the evil guy at the country club wanted to take their home. Thematically, that is the theme of just about every single movie. In fact, I would challenge you to find a good, reputable, nice, kind billionaire in any movie. In fact, I'll tell you, the only one that comes close to it is Batman, but that dude was weird in half of those movies. Okay? So the narrative that's pumped into you by the world that we live in, by the way, this wasn't always the case. In fact, it used to be the other way, okay? About 2,000 years ago in the world, it was assumed that if you had money, you were an honorable, good person. And if you didn't, you had done something wrong. It was completely different. But now in our culture, this is what we've been taught. So there I am sitting in my chair thinking to myself, I must have done something wrong. I'm making six figures now. I must have done something wrong. So I went back to the source and I went back to a book of wisdom literature. So if you're familiar with the ancient scriptures, you'll know there is a book in there called Proverbs. Proverbs was written by a wise king, a man named Solomon, who was one of the most powerful kings in all of the earth, and they said at the time, the wisest man who ever lived. And he wrote this book. It was called Proverbs. It's full of great life information. And all I did was I went through that book, and I put a little dot next to all of the sections inside of that little book where it talked about money, wealth, poverty, riches, rich people, poor people, okay? All I did was put a little dot next to it. Now there's hundreds of verses, by the way. That book doesn't shy away at all about talking about money. And what I realized when I read this ancient text is that at least according to this book, this book of wisdom that's been around for years, there are not two categories, there are actually four categories when it comes to wealth, okay? So there is poor and rich, but there's also evil and good. Instead of two categories, there are actually four. So, for example, you can be in this category right here, which is a evil rich person. Now, if I say evil rich person, for most people, someone comes to mind, okay? So for some, you're like, there's that guy, George Soros, and I can't stand him, all right? Or someone else like those Koch brothers, okay? Whatever political camp you are, okay, at Bill Gates, okay, I don't know who it is for you, but there's somebody who comes to mind, yeah, that guy right there, okay? So let's just be honest. In the world, there are evil people who have resources who are using those resources to further evil, okay? And I'm not saying any of those people are, I'm just saying that's someone just came into your mind, okay? Maybe they are, right? So the second category, interestingly enough, okay, are evil poor people. Now, I was blown away by that because I was taught by media that if somebody doesn't have money, therefore, they are a good person. And what I realized is that there are people that exist in the world today who have the mind, who have the body, who have the resources to be able to create something great. They can get themselves into the workforce and do something in labor or productivity that creates great change in the world. And if you understand the way the world works, you understand that with more people, we have more resources. You know, human beings are the only beings on the world who create more than we consume. That's amazing when you think about it. But there is a class of people who choose not to work, not because they cannot work, but simply because they choose not to work. And it's been said of folks like this that, you know what? The best thing for them for a little while is to be hungry so that they get themselves back into the workforce so that they can be productive and have a good sense of the work that they're doing in the world. So in fact, there is a category of evil poor people. I thought, man, that's crazy. I never even knew that that was true. Now, there also, think about this, is a category of good poor people. You know folks like this. By the way, in that little book that I read, that wisdom literature that I read, it was very clear in that book that this should always be a temporary state. Okay? So if you are generally good, noble person with noble objectives, and by the way, when I say good, I don't mean perfect. Trust me when I tell you that I'm not an example of perfect. I'm an example of a person who has good goals, good intentions, wants to create good in the world. I've made a million mistakes. I'm probably making another million more. And that might be an understatement, okay? So good, poor, it should be a temporary state to move into number 4, which is good, rich. Now, I'm going to tell you that there were times in my life when I was here. There's been times where I owed a couple $100,000 in business debt that had no idea how to get myself out of it. And there's times that I've been over here. And I will tell you that all things being equal, I wasn't any different. Like I wasn't a different DNA. I wasn't a different morality. I had million dollar plus years. Okay. I had $1 million plus years where I lost money too over here. Okay. Building businesses, growing teams, that sort of thing. All right. So for the most part, this transition right here, if I had a choice, just so you know, between this one and this one, I would choose this one. Because on this one, you can at least go shopping, okay? All right, so now the first thing that you need to know when we talk about money and wealth is that there are 4 categories. And this hopefully will help you get over this sense around money, that money, somehow, you've heard this before, people say, money is the root of all evil. Well, that actually comes from the ancient scriptures, the Bible as well. But that's a misquote, by the way. Think about this. People say money is the root of all evil. And as good people, sometimes good people are like, all right, well, I guess they're right about that. No, they're wrong about that. The actual writing, here's what it says. It says, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Do you see the difference there? Love of money was beginning, and the second one was all kinds of evil. The love of money is the root of all kinds of these kind of people evil. Okay? So the first thing you need to know when we talk about money is there are 4 quadrant sets. That's going to be very important as we get into the next phase of what we're going to talk about, which is a phase that I call free lunch lessons, okay? So before I do that, I want to jump into chat and say hello. Quickly, let's see if I missed anybody. Hello, Cecilia, good to see you. Zach Bouguet, my man from Pennsylvania. Zach, you know what? You and I should do one of these shows together. This is my formal invitation for you, buddy. If you guys don't know Zach, he's an executive of an organization called Penske. You've probably heard of them. You've probably seen their trucks driving around. Zach is one of the millennials I know who understands what a good day's work is. Dude knows what it means to work hard and to produce for his company. So one of those people that makes your life a better place. Thank you, Zach, for jumping in and saying hello. He said, all right, good to go. All right, cool. So let's do this really quickly. I'm going to transition into the second part. By the way, I should have some time towards the end of today's show to answer some of your questions. I've got 1, 2, 3, a few more things, more than a few, okay? But we're gonna get into. By the way, I'll just do this really quickly. If you're just getting on board, we're talking about how to get paid what you're worth. It's 3 things: mindset, skill set, action set. We're in the mindset section right now, okay? So if you just joined us, my name's Ed Rush. This is how to get paid what you're worth. Part 1, we're gonna do part 2 and probably part 3 tomorrow. So this was the first segment. We talked about the difference between 2 kinds of people in the world and 4 kinds of people, and the misconception sometimes that people have that there's only 2 categories: evil rich people and good poor people. All things being equal, You want to be a good, rich person, okay? So the second one I want to tell you in terms of just the lessons are what I called something called free lunch lessons. Now, most entrepreneurs I know at some point in your career execute this process called free lunch lessons. Let me just tell you what this is really quickly. So I told you in the introduction, and if you didn't hear that, you could always go back and watch the recording. If you are watching this on recording, there's timestamps right below that have an outline of the discussion that we have here today. So when I was starting out in business, I told you I was sitting in that chair. I was growing a business for people who wanted to be fighter pilots. I grew that business and started a second online business. This business was helping people who are basketball referees. In fact, there's two of my customers in that world right now that are here, Matt and David. Okay, so that second business I grew, and at this point, I was growing 2 6-figure businesses and moving close into the 7-figure range when you include my speaking. So I would go to these events, and the event promoter I would know in some way or another, and they would bring me up on stage, and I would usually just share some stories about some of the things that I was doing online. I was buying ads using Google AdWords and sending people to a landing page and getting them to buy a product. And I was spending 3 to 5 cents on the ad and getting a $97 sale. And all said and done, my ad costs and marketing costs were about $10 to $15 per sale. And I was putting $10 to $15 into the internet and getting $97 back, which is good math, okay? It's like going to an ATM and putting $1 in and getting $10 out. It's good math, okay? So I would stand up on stage and I would share some of the things that I was doing, and I would throw up some of the pages and just teach my stuff, you know, what I was doing. And then I would go to the back and I would always have people standing there with their notes and they would come up to me and they would ask the same thing in the same way. They would go, Ed, this was so great. Thank you for what you just taught. Listen, would you mind if I took you to lunch? This is exactly how they say it every time. Would you mind if I took you to lunch so I could pick your brain? And as a young entrepreneur, my mid-30s, having just come out of the Marine Corps, I was like, oh man, I'm so honored. Like, that guy wants to pick my brain. This is so cool. Okay. And so I would go to lunch and they would be like, we've got this page and we've got this. And I would go do this and log into this and change this and make it look like this. And here, put your opt-in form over here. And they'd be like, oh, thanks. And they would write all this stuff down. And then, you know, there would be that awkward part where like, we're trying to figure out who's going to pay for the bill. And then we would split the bill and then they would go their separate way. And I would like leave that lunch being like, man, I just helped that business. And oh, this is so cool. I'm helping people. Of course, I wasn't getting paid. All right. And then like 3 or 4 months later, I'd be at another event and I would see that person that I work with at lunch, but they would be like hiding from me. And finally I'd track them down and be like, Rick, how are things going? And oh man, Ed, sorry, we got busy. It would be the same thing every time. We got busy. We haven't really gotten to the stuff. We really want to just tell you, thank you so much for the time that you took. It was like that every single time. And what I realized is that something that I learned from a guy named Joe Polish is that if people don't pay, they don't pay attention. If people are not invested in themselves, they're not going to get a result. Now, I want to take you fast forward and then come back. So about 2 years later, I had a $5,000, I'll tell you how I got there in a second. I had a $5,000 coaching program where people used to come in groups actually to my home, to this office right here, and we would work together on their business, a group of about 5 people, okay? So this program I had got so busy and I ran out of days to meet with people that I changed the price to $10,000. Now, it's important for you to know in the function of this story that nothing else changed. They didn't get more time with me. They didn't get more time with my team. I didn't add any extra services. I just got so busy that I was like, I just need to double the price. So literally, arbitrarily, out of nowhere, I just simply changed the price from $5,000 to $10,000. Now, on average, I was getting anywhere between 20 and 25 people when I would go speak. And I would do this about 4 times a year, okay? So I would go speak at these events 4 times a year and get 20 to 25 people. And I was under the impression that if I changed my price to 10,000, it would drop this 20 to 25 to 10 to 12, and then I would have a better schedule, but the same amount of money. What happened the next time I went and spoke is I got 20, 25 again. So when I went from 5 to 10, the numbers stayed the same. The price just went up. What I realized, first of all, was there was almost zero price resistance between this market when it came from $5,000 to $10,000. Now, the second thing blew my mind. The second thing, what happened when we went from 5 to 10, I already knew I was making more money. I already knew that I was working the same. So that was cool on my end. But what interestingly happened was that the $10,000 people implemented more and got a better result by a factor greater than 2 than the $5,000 people. In other words, with everything else being the same, my input being the same, their input being the same in terms of their investment, double in terms of their investment. What happened was the $10,000 people got a result greater than 2 times what the $5,000 people did, and the only difference was what they put into the program. And I realized in this moment, you know what? Sometimes when people pay more, they get more. Because the moment you pay more, like for example, right in the beginning of my business, I invested in a $15,000 coaching program. And me investing in that coaching program, man, that was the first moment that I realized I'm done being cheap about charging people. I'm done. Personally, I am done being cheap on my way to success. And as soon as I decided I was done being cheap on my way to success, I realized I was done with people who are trying to be cheap on their way to success. So free lunch lessons went out the window and I started charging people money. Now, the transition between these two, let me tell you how this happened. I got a phone call right in the middle of free lunch lessons. I got a phone call from a friend of mine who lives in San Diego. And this friend of mine was working as a paid consultant in someone else's company. And they were partners, this consultant and this guy were partners, partial partners in this company. And my buddy called me and he said, hey, we want you to come in. We want you to do a coaching day with us because we want you to help us set up a new product. Now, I had never done a coaching day. I had never had a client. I'd never had anything. And he said to me, look, I want you to come in and we just want to pay you. Just tell us what you charge. Now, I didn't charge anything at this point because I was in free lunch lessons. I wasn't down here. So I said to him, Henry, I said, my normal fee is $5,500, but for you, I'll do it for $25. And he said, I'll take it. Now listen, this is one of my first lessons. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about skill set. When you say a price, you stop talking. I should have said $5,500 and let him say, I'll take it after that instead of $2,500. Now, this guy, they paid me $2,500. And the next week, they went out and made $189,000 with the program that I helped them create. It was in that moment, by the way, that I realized that you can get paid a lot of money to help someone make even more money. But it doesn't just factor into that. After this, I've worked with hundreds, in certain cases, I think if I counted up, thousands of people like you who have ideas and products and stories and experiences who want to go out in the world and get paid what you're worth. And what I realized is it doesn't just work in the business environment. It works in health. It works in relationships. It works in dieting. It works in organic gardening. It works in any place that somebody has a problem, because fundamentally what this is, fundamentally your requirements are 2 things. Write these down. The first thing is you have to have a desire to help people. Okay, that's the very first thing. And the second thing is you have to have the willingness, in fact, the courage to ask for the sale. When you combine those 2 things, you have everything you need. Okay, so this is the second part of the story. And this is the second thing that I needed to show you, because you have to get over it. The first part, you have to understand the 4 kinds of people in the world, right? But the second part is you have to realize that free oftentimes is actually the evil thing. So you feel sometimes in your heart, you're like, gosh, I want to be nice to these people and I want to help these people. And sometimes you think helping them means not charging them. In more cases than not charging them is continuing to facilitate the problems that have been happening in their life. And the best thing they could do is step up and pay something for your kind of help so that they can get the help that they need. And you know what? If they don't want to do that, you have one of the most important words in business, which is the word next, okay? So it's the word next. All right, so real quick, I'm going to catch up and say hello in chat. Cecilia says, exactly. I love it. So what's up, Lanika? How are you? I'm going to do, so he says, do a Q&A section. So I do those on almost every Friday, by the way. I have a full hour of Q&A. I'm going to leave hopefully about 8-10 minutes at the end. So if you have questions, go ahead and dump them in. Jim says, happen all the time. Dr. Wendy Lee, good week of blank of stay home. Good to see you. I love it. That's great. Thank you, David Setz. And David is a graduate of one of my consulting programs, okay, where we talk about, I go deep into this, all right? So I gave a discount 2 weeks ago for my productivity program, and I've had almost 30 people take me up on that, by the way. If you're interested in a discount in my strategic advisor program, which shows you how to get paid for your time, experience, knowledge, and expertise, you let me know as well. All right, so most of you, or a lot of you already have that. Okay, so let's keep going. If you just joined us, by the way, my name is Ed Rush, former F-18 fighter pilot, seven-figure advisor. Today's show is how to get paid, what you're worth. In a moment, I'm going to be taking your questions, but we're talking about three things on today's show. There are three keys. I said in the beginning, it's mindset, skill set, and action set. On today's show, we're talking primarily about mindset. This will flow a little bit into tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about skill set, and then Wednesday, I'm going to be talking about action set and pricing models. Okay, so how to price yourself upfront, monthly pricing, percentage pricing. Should you ever do things like trades? I'm going to cover all that on Wednesday's show. If you're watching this on a video, just catch up on the videos. You'll see that they tend to go in order with the episode number. Okay, so let's chat about a little bit more on the mindset set. So there is a principle, a sales principle called Own It. And I'm going to go a little bit deep on this for just a second, but before I do that, I want you to imagine for a moment. Imagine there is a spaceship. So I read a lot of science fiction, so this won't be a problem for me to imagine. Imagine there's a spaceship that's just orbiting planet Earth. And this spaceship is one of those Ark-type ships that can hold hundreds of thousands, even millions of people. And that spaceship just continues to orbit planet Earth. It's got food and supplies and oxygen, so everything someone needs to subsist. Okay? And I want you to imagine for a moment that in that spaceship, in one moment, in exactly one moment, every single person in this category in the world gets sucked into the spaceship, okay? So let's assume that all of the counselors, all of the therapists, all of the teachers, and all of the pastors and rabbis and shamans and religious leaders, whoop, everybody gets sucked up into the spaceship. And for 7 days, all of the religious leaders, all the teachers, all the counselors and pastors, all of those folks are flying around on the spaceship. Okay, they're just talking about what they believe in, sharing ideas. I don't know what's happening on the spaceship, but what I can tell you is right back here on planet Earth, things wouldn't really change that much. I mean, you know, if you took them away for a year, they might, but for a week, I mean, you can miss a counseling session for a week. You can probably miss church if you need to, and if not, you know, there's probably somebody else there that could probably lead it. You could probably miss, you know, school for a week. I mean, we do that all the time right now. And so if all of those folks were traveling around planet Earth, not much would happen. It would basically be the same. And then they would all come back down and everything would be back to order again. And now I'm not disparaging any of those folks. If that's you, I have a great deal of honor for the work that you do in the world. I'm just talking about the importance of one specific area in the world, and that is sales. Let's just say, for example, we had that same spaceship, okay? But instead of sucking up all the therapists, counselors, and pastors, instead of those folks, we just sucked all of the salespeople and all of the entrepreneurs up into the spaceship. Now, for 7 days, all the salespeople and all the entrepreneurs are getting stuff done up on that spaceship, but down on planet Earth, it would take not a day, not a half a day. It would take about 4 hours before the entire world economies collapsed, before everything went to hell in hours. Literally in hours, okay? Because if you stop this, you stop everything. And the reason I tell that story is so important is because we look sometimes at these teachers and pastors and therapists and we're like, oh man, that's such a noble calling. And you forget that one of the most fundamentally important callings for any culture or society are these people right here. Because you're the ones that make things move. Listen, every innovation that we've had, every single innovation back to the beginning of time, all the way back to fire, had something to do with entrepreneurs. It had something to do with you creating something and taking it to the next village and being like, hey, check this out. What would you be willing to trade for this? That's how the world works, okay? And the reason I tell you this is really simple. Sometimes I know entrepreneurs have this feeling where you're like, yeah, I kind of do my job and I kind of do this, but it's really this other thing that I really want to do, because you feel like something else is far more noble than what you do. Now, a week ago, one of you asked on the show via chat, Denise actually, she said, what is the first thing we should do if we want to help change the world politically? And I said, the first thing you can do is make and keep money, right? Because remember when I said rich, poor, evil, rich, good, rich? If you're a good person that wants to see great change happen in the world, one of the most important things you can do is have the resources, because if, let's say you want to change the world and you want to just make the world a better place, and you have a mission to do that, but you wake up in the morning and you don't have money, then when you wake up in the morning, you're thinking about not having money. But if you have a mission and a vision to change the world and you want to just make these great changes, and you wake up in the morning and you have money, then you're focused on changing the world, which is one of the reasons why you need to start waking up and having money. Now, back to this. This comes into you as an entrepreneur quoting your fee with a straight face. One of the most important things you can do is own the value of who you are and what you're worth. So for example, right now I'm thinking about one of our attendees, Dr. Wendy, who just mentioned something right in chat. Your mission in the world is amazing. You help people have a better and more vibrant life. You cannot put a price tag on that. You absolutely can't. And I'm telling you, I've worked with doctors in the natural world, in the functional medicine world, in the regenerative space for about the last 5 years, okay? And there are some doctors that I know who are charging a little bit. Like, you remember on Yelp when it's like, that's the fast food place, okay? And this is the really expensive 9-course place with the wine pairing, right? And I know some doctors who are charging that, and I know some doctors who are charging that. Now, the interesting thing about the two is oftentimes there's barely a difference between the great work that they're doing in the world. These people have great skill sets, great tools, great work that they're doing in the world. These people have great skill sets, great work that they're doing in the world. It's just in one case, someone's charging a little teeny bit and someone's charging a lot. I work with, by the way, with a doctor, one of my folks that attended my events, who the first meeting when people come to her, it's $4,000. I think that's actually gone up since then. $4,000 for the first one to sit down. Now, I know people who go like this, man, that's too much. But you know what? She's full. There's apparently people who look at the $500 doctors, look at the $4,000 doctor, and go, well, I'm going to go work with the $4,000 one because apparently she's better. And the only distinguisher they have in their mind is that she's better because she charges more, okay? So one of the keys in your business to making more money is working with and targeting people with money. They're P.W.Ms, okay? Because if you target and work with people with money, and by the way, with money doesn't always mean that they actually have a lot of money. It means that they actually spend money, okay? They're willing to invest in themselves. This is totally different. Sometimes people with money don't do anything with it. Sometimes people who without money, but generally speaking, people with money to spend, okay? So people with money. Now, I'm gonna just do this and jump back into chat. So when I say this, and I'm specifically using the doctor world on purpose, because number one, I've worked with hundreds of people in that world, and number two, there's always a heart in the medical world. People that I work with, regenerative health, functional medicine, naturopaths, look, these are people who grew up with a heart to change things. They really, really want to help. Most of the doctors I know, probably all of them, they really, really want to help people more than they want to make money, okay? And so I'm using this as an example specifically. So what happens is when I work with a doctor one-on-one, and I do this whole thing, and I'm like, we need to take 1 Yelp dollar sign to 4 Yelp dollar signs. They're like, first response is excited. And the first response comes along with it like, yeah, I've been meaning to do this for a while. The second response is always this one. All right, Ed, but what about all the people that really need me? This is exactly the way they say it every time. What about the people? I mean, I have people that come into my practice. They can't afford barely that, but they really need me, okay? So here's what I do for those practices, and then I'm gonna come back to chat, and I've got one more thing, and then we're going to do some questions. All right, so here's what you do. If you have that mindset, which is okay, by the way, remember I said that comes from a desire to help people. If you're thinking to me, if you're saying to me, all right, Ed, but look, I get it. I should charge more. I should have more. I should have my prices out there. But you know what? There are these people. There are these people that just need me, man. They just need me. And that's the same thing. Like I said, people say it all the time. Okay, so here's what I do with my doctors. When you come in and sit down with me and do a one-on-one day with me, this is the way it works. I don't disagree with them. I stopped doing that years ago because I don't want to have that discussion, okay? If you say someone needs you, I say, okay, that's fine. Someone needs you. So this is what I do with every doctor, okay? I split your practice into 2 practices. And this doesn't even have to be legally done. I'm just telling you when it comes to time, okay? The first practice, this is true for all of your businesses, right? So just because I'm talking about doctors doesn't mean I'm not talking about you. The first practice is a for-profit practice, and the second practice is a non-profit. Remember all those need me people? Guess where they go? All the need me people, they go down here. Now, in my coaching sessions with my doctors, here's what I do. I ask them to give me a time allocation. How much of your time a week are you going to spend on this? And how much of your time a week are you going to spend on this? Normally it turns into something like this, 80% and 20%. What that means is if you're a 40-hour week, which most are working more than this, that means 32 hours here and 8 hours here, all right? And I said, look, tell your team on your schedule, you can allocate, 2 hours on Monday, 2 hours on Tuesday, 2 hours on Wednesday, 2 hours on Thursday. For the need me people, you can charge anything you want, but everybody else, you're going to charge what we just agreed that you're going to charge your higher prices, okay? Here's my experience. Within a year, this is gone. Boop. You know why? If a person comes to a natural medicine doctor with a problem, they have a vitamin deficiency, they have some sort of internal digestive problem that needs to get fixed, they have some sort of hormonal problem. If they come to the doctor and they don't want to invest in their results, they don't want to invest the time and the energy in getting a result either. So some of the most frustrating people you'll ever work with are the people that don't pay you. Because what happens is you'll talk to them 3 months later and they haven't taken the vitamins, they haven't done the hormones, they haven't done anything. And the reason they haven't done anything is because they're not willing to invest money into the solution to their problem. They're not oftentimes willing to invest their own time or their energy. In other words, if they're trying to get something for free from you, they're also trying to get something for free from the world. Okay? That's why this is so important. Now, it doesn't always go away. Sometimes my doctors are spending a short amount of time each week with people who really do need them. But remember, these are supposed to be temporary people. You get them back up on their feet, get them performing again so that they can eventually start to pay you. Okay, so with that, man, I went on a roll there. So with that, I'm going to come back to the center camera, and I'm going to take your questions, all right? So let me take a breath of fresh air. I was talking, dude. We just went on. All right, so let's say hello to some people. Hello, Maria. Nice to see you. Giovanni. Good to see you last Thursday on Marquetta's show too, as well. Dr. Ed says, what about toilet paper makers? Boom. That's great. That's the fire. All right, Gina says, it's easier to do when you have money with it. Yes. The more you have, the more you can give. Boy, isn't that right? Jim House, what's up, dude? And when you help your clients get results no one else can, it's easy to ask a premium. Add value, help me own that ad. Yeah, so tomorrow, it's probably going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about skill set. When I do skill set, I'm going to talk about what happens with a price objection. Okay, so almost always when you're talking, especially one-on-one to a client, there's going to be this discussion of price, and oftentimes there's a little bit of a negotiation on price. What I will tell you is that some of the best consultants in the world don't change prices. What they do is they begin to, what Jim House just said, which is to add value. And Jim is an example. I don't know where you're at in terms of charging Jim, but Jim's an example of a guy who got some help. We did a little bit of work together, but dude implemented and really took the reins on his own business and took a program that we were teaching people to charge $5,000 and was charging up to $40,000 with it. So Terry, who's a clinical psychiatrist, said, amen, those who pay are the biggest pains in the butt. All right. Oh, good question, Gina. Thank you. I'll get to that. Mike Toy says, it's true, people who pay are more likely to implement. I like that. All right, cool. So let's do this. Couple things, couple little quick housekeeping things. First one, if you just joined us, by the way, my name is Ed Rush. This is How to Get Paid What You're Worth. This is EdTalks Live. By the way, we air Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 Eastern. This is not going to go on forever, okay? So it will for the next month, though. And next week, I've got some guests coming in here that you're going to love, 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 and a couple of returning folks as well. Tomorrow, I'm going to be teaching part 2 of How to Get Paid What You're Worth. Part 2 is the skill set segment, okay? So right now, what we're going to do is jump into just some rapid fire Q&A. I'll do this for maybe 8-10 minutes, and then we will wrap up the show. By the way, I've been trying to get these shows inside of an hour, and I've been 90% unsuccessful. But if I get it to an hour, I can put it on Instagram TV as well. So some of you have seen me teaching that. This week's flight briefing. Let me tell you what. If you are not over here, where's the website? Nope, there it is. Fourth time's a charm. If you have not gone to edrush.com, first of all, we've made a bunch of changes over there. If you are not on my email list, now is the time to do this. I've got a flight briefing. Every Wednesday we come out with our flight briefing, and I've got one coming out this week that will blow your socks off. I'm going to talk about some of my best live streaming tips, but also I'm going to give you a challenge that you are not going to want to miss out on. And I will tell you that Gina, whose question I'm going to in just a second, it has taken me up on that challenge that I'm going to give you on the flight briefing. So if you liked last week's flight briefing, which by the way was one of the single most responded to emails I have ever sent, if you like that one, you're going to love this week. All right, so let's get to Gina's question. I like this. So let's just get a nice clean break. If you just joined us, by the way, this is How to Get Paid What You're Worth. My name's Ed Rush, taking live Q&A. And Gina Longo asked the question, how do you clear that biggest hurdle, getting that first paying client? All right, so 2 things as far as assumptions, Gina. So first of all, this is one of the 2 things. First of all, I've helped literally over 1,000 people do this, okay? So I am very qualified to tell you what I'm about to tell you, all right? And by the way, some of those people are on chat right now. So your first deal is your first deal. And I always call the first deal problem the first deal problem. Here's the thing. People come up to me and they're like, Ed, what happens if somebody says, have you ever done this before? And I'm like, that's a 1 deal problem. You get past 1 deal, that's not a problem. They're not going to ask you that anyway, but that's a 1 deal problem. People go, man, I've never done this before. I don't know how to charge money. And I say, look, that's a 1 deal problem, because once you do that 1 deal, that problem goes away. Okay, so Gina, the first way to get your first paying client is exactly the same way you're going to get every single other client after that. Okay, now you will be surprised to find out that the people that you are talking to and prospecting could care less about your background and experience as a consultant. Okay, so I'm going to take you into my 3rd or 4th coaching day. This is all the way back in like 2008. And I was sitting with this woman, brilliant business owner, who had a piece of software that she worked with on a daily basis. And she was one of the only people in the world that really understood this piece of software. And the CEO of the software company knew her and kept sending people to her to learn this piece of software. And I said, look, you are going to create a coaching program. And in your coaching program, you're going to be working and training with people who want to become certified coaches inside of this software. And I built this entire thing for her, and it was awesome. And she liked it, and I liked it. All of a sudden, around maybe the 2.5, 3 hour mark in the coaching days, we're building this thing together. All of a sudden, I could feel her energy kind of pulling back. And I just say, hey, what's going on? And she goes, I don't feel like it's right. And I go, what do you mean you don't feel like it's right? And she goes, I just don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. And I'm like, what do you mean? What can't you do? And she goes, I can't call myself a coach. She's like, I've never taken a coaching certification. I've had no experience as a coach. I don't think I can call myself a coach. And I said, let's just say her name's Tracy. It wasn't. I just say her name's Tracy. I said, Tracy, let me ask you a question. Are you glad you came today? She goes, yeah, I'm really glad you came. I said, Tracy, she had paid about $7,500, by the way, for this one day. I said, Tracy, you invested about $7,500 in this one day with me. You feel like that was a good investment? She goes, I feel like it was a great investment. I said, do you think when you implement this stuff, it's going to really help you and help others? She goes, I really do. If we could just overcome this one thing. And then I said, Tracy, let me ask you a question. Which one of my coaching certifications were the ones that influenced you the most to come work with me? And this big smile erupted on her face, and she goes, none of them, none of them. And I go, you know why? Because I don't have any. I said, you came here because you were interested in what I could do for you. And when you're working with your prospects, the thing they want the most is the transformation in their business. They want the transformation in their life. They want the transformation in their bank account or the transformation in their relationships. It's the transformation they're after. So the first thing, Gina, is when you speak in benefits, when you talk to the person and the results that someone's having in their life, you'll find they're very uninterested in your background or your experience. Now, if it's a big issue for you and you really feel like you need to do it, there's some scripting that you can just use that goes like this. So let's say you're talking to somebody named Ron. You say, hey, Ron, listen, I don't know if you know this or not, but I just launched a business where I help people, and then you fill in the blanks on the benefits. And I was wondering if you're interested in being one of my beta clients. I'm bringing on a group of new clients, 4 or 5 new clients, who are going to be my beta group. Now, here's the way this works. We are going to work together to accomplish, fill in the blank on some more benefits, more benefits, more benefits. And when you get a result, there's 2 things. Number 1, I'm going to charge you a little bit less than everyone else because you're part of my beta group. And number 2, our agreement together is that when you get a result, you're going to be one of my first testimonials. That's it, okay? So I did that quickly, right? But just go back and listen to the recording. You can do that right afterwards, and you can hear what to say. So again, if that's an issue, that getting started issue, tell them they're part of a beta group. Bring them into the beta group, a little bit of a discount if you want to, on the agreement that they're going to give you a testimonial, okay? And people feel like, wow, I got a discount because I was going to give them a testimonial, and it works great, okay? So very good question. Thank you. By the way, thank you for the honesty and transparency in asking that question. I think you got a good answer. Now go get that deal. How about this, Gina? 7 days. Go get it. I'm not kidding you. Go get. You got 7 days to report back to the group. She didn't know she was going to get a homework assignment. But look, here's the thing. There's somebody, for all of you, as you're watching, there's somebody sitting right here on your phone. There's someone on this phone of yours that can pay you money right now for your time, your experience, your expertise, and your knowledge. Diana says, oh, great. Thank you, Gina. Good. It is. She's oh, good. All right, you're on. Diana says, just changing the mindset works. Folks are coming to me with, it's great. It's great. Look, there's something funny that happens when you begin to think the way that you should think about yourself. And I'm not even sure it's because you start acting differently, but I think it is actually because you start acting differently. But the moment you begin to think of yourself differently, people will begin to treat you differently, okay? Sometimes the whole package goes with that. I'm not kidding you. Sometimes you start thinking of yourself differently, all of a sudden your website starts looking better because you realize what you just had doesn't represent who you now are. You start thinking of yourself differently. Sometimes you start dressing a little bit differently. I'm telling you, man, come to I don't be careful when you follow the asses shirts at my events. You come to my events, man, you're going to see somebody dressed in the way that I'm viewing myself as a trainer and an instructor. When you think of yourself differently, everything begins to change and people begin to treat you differently. The second thing that happens is all those people that don't, you begin to strategically separate yourself from those toxic people that are in your life, and you start to spend more time with people like our group here. All right, so that's a good pitch for this thing. All right, you got some encouragement, Gina, by the way. Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate that. Man, we haven't not done. Aubrey, you've been pushing me a little bit. We have not done a consulting event. I have not done one for about 3 years, and I'm talking about that being my fall event. So we may end up doing that. The idea of getting paid near instantaneously is really, really attractive. And as a consultant, advisor, or coach, you can get paid like now. It's so much better than every other business just because of that. So I love that. I like that. Thanks, Ed, for your passion. I'm going to wrap up, by the way, in just a couple minutes. So if you got any last minute thoughts, throw them in the chat as well. I like that. David says, new thoughts lead to new emotions, which lead to new behaviors, which lead to new personality, which leads to a new personal. You got that right, dude. Nobby, what's up, man? Oh, by the way, I think I should just, I'll wrap up by just saying this. There's a friend of ours that passed away recently, and I want to just mention her. Hey, Barry. Judy says, perfect timing and information as a pivot from one industry to another. Yeah, the summer fairs aren't really happening, are they? Bummer. I can't confirm or deny whether I will be a part of this Friday's peaceful protest in San Diego. There's a pretty good chance I'm going to be there. So I don't think you're any stranger to my personal opinions when it comes to this. But there was one of the amendments that have to do with the ability to protest, and I can't remember which one it was. There's 27 amendments. Oh, it's the first one. It's the first one. It's the first one. It's in the first one. All right, that whole free speech thing. All right, so we're going to wrap up today. Let me just pass on some news to our community that I just found out this weekend. In fact, I think Nabi, you might have put this in chat on a show last week, and I missed it. But our dear friend Irene Tomo Cooper passed away last week. If you know her, she's been battling cancer. She had been battling cancer for 7 years when she came into our community that long ago. And man, did we pray for her and surround her with encouragement. And if she was here today, she would tell you it was the community of people around her that she lasted so long. And by the way, she lasted vibrantly. I mean, that girl, some of the things that she accomplished in that period of time are awe-inspiring. And I'm just sharing that with you. Many of you knew her as a reminder. First of all, man, there's good people in the world, and she was one of those good people. But live her legacy. I will tell you that she went from charging about $1,000 per person that she coached up to about $10,000 per person that she coached. And that came out of a one-on-one session that I did with her. She had courage, man. She had courage. And she went out there in front of Japanese women, which is a hard group sometimes to market to. And she put on her big girl pants, and she got it done. And she's helped thousands, I mean, probably at this point, hundreds of thousands of women, because she had the courage to go out and step out in front of her market. So use Irene's legacy as a motivation for you. We live in a world that needs changing. And she certainly was one of those people who changed the world for good. So keep her in mind as you go out in the world, and just remember, it's going to go one of two ways. The world's going to get worse, and then we're going to be in charge, or the world's going to get better. And we're going to be in charge. Thank you, Rob. Oh man, that is so cool. Irene's the reason I own a book that I can't read since it's in Japanese. Thank you, Robert. I'm just studying to be the best, man. Irene was my hero while going through chemo. That's right. Brilliant woman and so strong. Such a lovely example of courage and a fighting spirit. Yes, may the fourth be with you. Have a great day. All right, so we are going to wrap up today's show. Let me see if I can find, hang on a second. Here we go. I'm going to wrap up today's show. Oh, this is so great. I'm just going to share her website just so that we can remember Irene and her beautiful legacy before we go. And I'll just leave that up there for a few minutes as we go. Just remember, use our dear friend Irene, who is with her Father in heaven, as your motivation to go out there and share your story, your expertise, your knowledge, your experience, and to flat out change the world. I'm going to throw the bumper on here, and then you can watch and think about Irene for a second. But just let me know, just to let you know how much I appreciate you. We together are going to change this world, and you're going to be a big part of it. So I'll talk to you soon.